So we have a full moon in Taurus on November the 12th at 5:34 a.m. Pacific time, and this is an unusual full moon. And in order to understand its unusualness, I think we need to start with some of the usual definitions of full moons. And so people who've been watching my videos, bear with me for about a minute because I'm going to go through that. But first, I think I want to get to the gist of the video right up front and say that this is a full moon that has some kind of a standoff or an opposition really between the sun in Scorpio and the moon in Taurus. And it's standoff between self-possession, the moon in Taurus, the full moon in Taurus, and being possessed by someone else or having things in possession with someone else, which are scorpionic themes. So this full moon, as far as I'm concerned, is occurring on the axis of relationship, and there is an interestingly stable and reflective few days right now where we are gathering ourselves and repossessing ourselves, a strange word to use, on this seesaw or trying to balance the scales between or in the middle of all this scorpionic inquiry. And you can look at some of my previous videos, the new moon in Scorpio video or the Mercury in Scorpio video I did a couple of days ago, to really know what I'm talking about, scorpionic inquiry. In the middle of all this inquiry, this relatively emotional, challenging inquiry about relationships where we are enmeshed with others, either just relationally, romantically, intimately, or even financially. It is really interesting and actually somewhat helpful to have a full moon that is strangely stabilizing and that is encouraging in the middle of all this scorpionic inquiry, a kind of gathering of ourselves unto ourselves, self-possession, very Taurian. And let me expand on that now a little bit more. When it comes to full moons, as watchers of this channel are aware, and indeed astrology aficionados will be aware, full moons are times of heightened emotions, activity, heightened energy. And so often emotionally this can lead to meltdowns or tantrums or tears or an increase in libido or blood or bleeding, if sort of fluidic, if you're used to having nosebleeds, you can have more of them during this time, kind of a thing, or cut, or just everything gets heightened. So emotionally, if there are things emotionally that have been brewing for a while internally, they can seek some sort of release. And my advice always is that around a full moon, typically the advice is to be calm and careful and measured. I actually think that if you're about to have a meltdown, you may as well, as best you can. I'm in no way advocating that anyone be harmed, physically especially, but sometimes an emotional release is necessary. And if you're on the receiving end of one, I think what needs to be paid attention to is what pot is coming to a boil and what needs to be expressed and what has been repressed. There's that aspect of a full moon. And then there's the other aspect, the positive aspect of a full moon, where something comes to culmination or something is revealed. So contracts can come through, offers can come through, something that you've been working on can get completed somehow. And either you find yourself spotlit, other people can get exposure. It's like the spotlight of the full moon temporarily grants some people some kind of exposure or popularity or pushes them into the limelight in some way, or certain things are revealed about where it is that the full moon is at that given time. And in this case, it is in the sign of Taurus. So wherever Taurus is in your chart, and what I mean by that, someone actually inquired about this, what I mean by that is what part of the chart, in other words, what house or houses of the chart does Taurus occupy, and what do those houses stand for? So if you have Taurus in the house of career, then the full moon is happening in the sign of Taurus in the house of career. So career-related activities are lit up by the full moon somehow. If it's in the 11th house of, among other things, friendship or social activities, You could then find yourself thrust into the limelight somehow. You post something on social media and it takes on a life of its own, for instance. If the full moon is in your first house and you have a Taurus ascendant, you could, the full moons in your first house could, among other things, again, make you somewhat tantrumy or make you want to have that meltdown with a significant other or a partner, professional or personal. So, or something comes to completion. If there's a full moon in one of the financial houses, because Taurus sits in your second house or eighth house, there could be something financial that needs to be investigated or revealed, or something comes to completion, or you get some sort of a payout, or there's an expense. So that's what I mean by when I say, hey, where's Scorpio in your chart, or where's Cancer in your chart, where's Taurus in your chart? Really what I'm saying is what house or houses, based on the way you cut your chart, does in this case Taurus occupy. That's where the full moon is occurring. There's an opposition between all this investigative energy in Scorpio right now and this full moon that happens in Taurus right opposite it. Yes, for some of us, the full moon can have this kind of heightened and emotional quality, but this full moon is different from other full moons. Typically around a full moon, things become busy, things become uncontented, discontented, or things try to reach some sort of a completion. With this particular full moon, strangely enough, there's something very stable and stabilizing and almost sleepy in a helpful way about it for many people. And it kind of has to be observed. It's a moment of calm, a few days of respite or rest, or is rest really the right word? Inquiry, self-possession is really what I keep coming back to. And in the middle of a time since October the 3rd to January the 3rd, when we're really going to be looking at some of our deepest and most enmeshed relationships. And so then all of a sudden we have this full moon in Scorpio. The other thing that gives this particular full moon a slightly different quality is that it's really happening at a time when Mercury is retrograde. So even if things do want to fast, kind of speed up and become hysterical or highly pitched or whatever it is, they're going to have a hard time doing so, because with Mercury retrograde, it's not as if Mercury is speeding forward really fast. So you've got the brakes being put, and strange sort of miscommunications, etc., occurring. So where typically, 4 weeks ago we had a full moon in Aries and it was a shit show. Pardon my French. It was discontented and tantrumy and extremely heightened and very busy, and people didn't know whether they'd be able to get everything done. And with this full moon, it doesn't feel like a full moon. It will for some of you. I'm not saying that some of you will not have your moment or things may not come through. One thing, if contracts or something comes to completion at this full moon, I'm still going to suggest that you see if you can't give it another 3 weeks or so to really see whether the contract and the terms hold or not. Or make sure, if you have to sign a contract now, make sure you really look at the details and that everything that you've been promised is in there. Was there a sign-on bonus, or was there I'm giving you examples like an employment contract. Have you thought through everything? With Mercury retrograde, details can get missed and require attention. And so, and also when Mercury goes direct on November the 20th, after it gathers some steam by Thanksgiving, it could be that as you head into December, you just feel differently about something, or something else comes up that makes you go, oh, I wish I hadn't completely committed to this, or at least I wish I had put in some flexibility because now something else has come along. So don't trust your own instincts. If something feels like it's desired and it's come through and you want to sign it and you've looked at the details, great. It's not like everyone can take a 3-week break from signing anything, but decisions are tricky to settle on at present. So just know that. And the solution, I want to leave you with a solution to that, is just truly checking in with yourself and looking at the details where you are being asked to put pen to paper, because there is a possibility. And when it comes to employment contracts and certain types of contracts, the issue may be details. With other kind of, I'll just call it decision making. Oh, I'm going to do this on this. Oh, I'm going to decide this on this. Particularly when it comes to relationships, and particularly when it comes to finances held in joint relationships. I would wait if I can, especially if it's not a contract and you're just thinking, I think I'm going to do this. I think I'm going to settle this. I think I'm going to divorce so-and-so. I think I'm going to do, clearly, with something, with big questions like divorces or separations, they're energies that have been operating for a while. There's just something here that says, if you aren't in a contract phase and your decisions are being made, be a little bit, just give it another 3 weeks before you feel like you have to make up your mind about something, because you may feel a little differently, or something may emerge that makes you think a little differently a little bit down the line by Thanksgiving. Okay. While this is a full moon and all sorts of full moony things may appear, we were talking about the fact that there is actually a bit of a break. This full moon is coming in. The moon is happy in Taurus. Taurus is a secure, stabilizing sign that focuses on contentment, self-possession, and independence, particularly financial independence, particularly our ability to generate our own income or have and possess what we want to have. For some people, this is billions and trillions of dollars and many houses and whatever it is that defines abundance for you. Whatever it is that defines abundance or a sense of abundance for you. And part of that sense of abundance is, with Taurus, it is independent abundance. It is not necessarily, when we're talking about Taurus, we're not talking about being involved with a lot of people, whether it's family or relatives or intimate involvement, or, we're not talking about the realm of emotional and financial entanglements with others. We're talking about our ability to have what we want. The child that's got his own. And what does it mean to have your own emotionally and also financially? The right word is independently. Because from that place, it may be that we're being given this break, because once we're done with this full moon by Thursday, Friday, the energies after that, we're going to start to move towards the end of the year. And broadly speaking, especially after Thanksgiving, the energies really ease up and are quite nice as we get to the end of the year. But there is, as much as it's been unsettling to be in this space of looking at enmeshments with others, the war or the battle hasn't really begun. It's going to begin kind of, while there's a lot of positive energy as we head into December, the battling and the conversations and the boundary drawing and the warfare related to enmeshments with others is really going to start up after the 19th of November, in that phase of the Scorpio season. So there's a gathering of resources. So if you feel that you are resting, doing less, spacing out, indulging in Taurian activities, eating, enjoying good food, music, theater, the arts, beautiful things, fine objects, nature, groundedness, if you feel like you're getting some sort of, ironically, even though it's a full moon, and you should never be thinking of a time off or healing around a full moon necessarily, it's an exaggeration, but there's something about this full moon that is really very different from other full moons. And so if you do get a chance to have some repose or rest or observation or space where you get to think about who you are and what you value, that is what independence comes down to in Taurian terms. Value. Sometimes it translates directly into money and your income and your sense of abundance. And sometimes it on a more holistic level, your sense of self-esteem, your sense of self-worth, where your boundaries are. I'm going to actually put the boundary part fourth. Your sense of self-worth, self-esteem, and what you value. Taurus is ruled by Venus, so this full moon is ruled by Venus, and Venus is in the sign of Sagittarius, an independent, inquisitive, searching for wisdom, philosophical sign. And it's very hard to think of this full moon and not think about the feminine side of all of our personalities. Indeed, it's, you've got the Sun in Scorpio and Mercury in Scorpio, feminine sign. You've got the moon having just passed Vesta, this much confusing asteroid in astrology, but clearly a feminine asteroid in a feminine side of Taurus. You've got this, the other thing about this full moon is it makes a kind of a stable or stabilizing. The one aspect it truly makes as it's happening is with Pluto, the planet of transformation, death and transformation. in the feminine sign of Capricorn, part of what makes the Scorpio energy that we're dealing with here so challenging and traumatic is that we know that something is transforming, and we know that we are moving through into something new, and we know that we are having to say goodbye to certain things. It's not really certain things. I think we're having to say goodbye to certain patterns and behaviors that we have held, and perhaps certain relationships that really reflect these, of how we have been enmeshed with others. There's an awareness of this. So somewhere this full moon happens that trines Pluto, the planet of death and transformation, and gives us an opportunity to gather ourselves to ourselves and really have some time to value and think about what we value. Because some of this work is going to become our armor or our touchstone as we move into the more emotional and battling phase that we're going to be going through till January the 3rd, where other energies will be active too. Venus being in Sagittarius means that there is a general tendency here as we go through and review our enmeshments to move towards greater independence. And when I think about women with strong Sagittarius placements, there's no, it is the don't fence me in sign, and there is a I will be the master of me quality. It's interesting, when I was thinking about this video, the woman who came to mind, maybe because I just saw the most recent version of Little Women, was Louisa May Alcott. And when I think about her life and the way she lived it with total independence, no marriage, no children, but very, very Sagittarian. I mean, that woman had a sun in Sagittarius. I have not looked at her chart. But I know where her sun sits. And it's hard not to think, when I think about this polarity that this full moon exemplifies between self-possession, being possessed by others, or possessing things with others, but the moon itself is in Taurus, which is ruled by Venus, and Venus is in Sagittarius, I can't help but think about women especially who are dealing with this polarity right now, or the feminine side of us. It is where our relationships are more emotionally enmeshed with others, whether you are male or female or however you identify, that this full moon is playing out as a stabilizing energy in what has felt like a not very stable time. The emotional contentment we have been searching for since October the 3rd is here briefly in a full moon kind of way, but the energy is largely internal. You get to take a bit of a deep breath. Look at my video yesterday titled Pivot. You get to reflect on what has happened in the week before and think about what is going to happen in the week ahead. Reflect, gather some steam, act with a certain amount of confidence, think about what your values are, and think about what you have learned or been pondering since October the 3rd, so that you can have a sense of how you're going to move forward as energies start to move forward and gallop in December. Okay, I will leave it at this. Feel free to like, comment on, share this video if you found it useful, subscribe to my YouTube channel, click on the bell icon if you'd like to be notified whenever I do new videos. My contact information is going to be in the subject area or the description area once I'm done processing this video, and you can reach out to me if you want to see a version of your chart, or which sign sits in which house and all that kind of stuff, or if you would like a reading or you have any inquiries. I will leave it at that until next time. Thank you.